looking at this chart again, we see those four towers. And each tower represents a different area of consideration, internal and external state and process. Also in a story, in addition to this, we have four different points of view that an audience needs to come to the story. They need the main character view, the obstacle character view, the subjective story, and the objective story. All four of those are essential in order to understand what's going on in the story. Now, what do these mean? Remember, we have the story mind. I'm going to draw it as a brain, but it's not a brain, it's a mind. And there are four views that the audience needs of that to have the same views that we have in real life, plus one extra that makes stories so compelling, the reason that we want to go to stories. If we look at this from the outside looking in, with a little eyeball, that's the objective view. It sees it from the outside as if we were watching someone else. And we can see all their attitudes and feelings and things that are going on, but we really can't see them at a personal level. We can just notate the effect that they have. That's the objective story view, like the view of a general on a hill watching a battle. But if we zoom into the shoes of one of the soldiers in the battle, as if we take the audience and position them in the mind to see what it's like to be this person represented by the story mind, that's the main character. And the main character sits in there in the story mind, and that's its sense of self. That's who the audience is in the story, who they care about most, or from where they look at things. It's the inside view looking out. Along the way, there's an alternative outlook. Stories are about trying to decide which is the right way to do things, which is better or worse. And so as we continue to move along as the main character, we encounter an opposing outlook. We say, well, you know, I could look at things that way instead. I could change my mind, change my attitude. Of course, all of these are represented as tangible characters and plot events in the story that represent the mechanisms of our mind. But we can get this view of looking at our minds more tangibly in stories rather than trying to figure out if we're making the right choices internally. So the main character looks at this other character and says, I don't know whether I want to use that point of view or not, but it is intriguing. Let me explore it more fully. So the main character looks at that point of view, and while the main character does, he compares how he sees things now to how he might see things if he adopted that point of view. And that becomes the subjective story. And this other point of view is the obstacle character. So the main character represents the I position, or me. It represents the audience position in the story, or the sense of self in the story mind. I, me. Obstacle character that we're looking at, that represents you. I'm looking at you. I'm examining you and saying, what kind of a person are you? What kind of a person would I be if I became you, if I looked at things that way? The devil's advocate voice within ourselves as we argue with ourselves over what's the best way to go, where we are, what we might decide. Subjective story is we. This is the differential between us. This is how we compare one to another. And then the one view that we can't get in real life, the objective view, is that view up here of the general on the hill, the view from the outside looking in, where effectively the author says, no matter how it looks from the inside, this is how it looks from the outside. So no matter how you feel, maybe you should go with your feelings in this kind of a situation, or in this kind of a story, maybe you should ignore your feelings and go with something that seems against all of your personal points of view, but from the big picture is really the best thing for you and everyone else as well. It's those four perspectives, those 4 points of view, that are necessary for the audience to feel they've looked at all the issues from every way they would look at it in real life, plus the one extra that gives them the reason for coming to a story in the first place, that additional view from the author. Now, if we have our chart showing these 4 different subject areas, each one gets assigned a different point of view. And that creates a perspective. If we have universe and external state be the objective point of view, that then is something that has a particular flavor. We're looking at external states as affecting everyone from the objective view. But if we had the main character occupy that, then it would have a different flavor, because now it's an external state of things that only affects and is explored by the main character. So each one of these gets its own domain, its own area to explore. Main character, obstacle character, objective story, subjective story, wherever you happen to place them. And therefore each will have its own set of types to explore to completely go through all the plot considerations at an act level of its own particular domain. So you end up with 4 different sets of a 4-act and a 3-act progression. There'll be 4 different sets like Ludo. Ludo might be the objective story, or whatever order you put them in, U-D-O-L or U-O-L-D. Remember, any order goes, but once you choose an order, it has a particular impact. But this might be the main character's exploration, or it might be blue ink all over my fingers, or it might be the objective story exploration that affects everyone. It's up to you where you assign those points of view as you structure your story. If we look at an example, we can see that here in Universe, there are 4 points of view: past, present, future, and progress. That was made the obstacle character act progression for A Christmas Carol, where you have the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, the ghost of Christmas future, and Marley represents progress, how long the chain that Scrooge is carrying is getting day by day. So they hand off one to another, those characters representing that opposing point of view, one to another, but each one fulfills 1 act's worth of exploration, a very handy way to divide it up.